So I sarcastically replied saying, oh yeah, they just printed, a few more square miles near me, and now it takes me 10 minutes longer to get to the grocery store. Like, real estate is also a scarce asset.
I don't think I would share a lot of that information to a random date.
These guys are probably geeking out. They're probably like, whoa, there's a girl who's like actually interested in what I'm doing, Yeah. Oh, you want to know?
It's like a Bitcoin death cult in a way. You just buy Bitcoin, you don't sell it, and then even like Michael Saylor comes out, like then you die with your keys. So you never use it at all.
There is a digital economy now, but it's not built around Bitcoin. It's the dumbest thing.
People should be allowed to buy scams with their money. Why can't we implement so we can actually use Bitcoin in all these cases?
Welcome to another episode of the Crypto Conversion Podcast. As usual, it is Connor, Matt, and Brandon. Guys, how you doing tonight?
Outstanding. Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
Great.
Matt?
Yeah. Hey, Friday, always nice.
Yeah. No, Friday's a great day. I am back in the home studio. No more traveling for a while. So, well, I shouldn't say that. I am traveling next week, but it's a much shorter trip. So, studio moving forward, so much easier, so much clearer sound. Connor won't hate me in the audio, so that's good. But anyway, interesting week, especially in the Bitcoin space, and we were talking about a lot of things before the podcast. However, before we get into the Bitcoin ETF / trust / whatever we want to call this, big bank involvement with it, let's talk about some of the other news. I'm just curious, what have you guys seen? There's been a couple of things pumping, couple of things dumping, regulatory stuff. The stuff is just, been a weird summer. It hasn't been a bearish summer like we saw last year, the past couple of summers. But yeah, I'm just curious what you guys have been seeing this week, and if anything's really piqued your interest outside of the Bitcoin stuff.
Well, I think the news on everybody's mind is the new Ed Sheeran album drop.
No, that was a while ago. That wasn't that new. I've finally had the time to start listening to it. So, please don't call me a basic for being an Ed Sheeran fan. The real basics are the Taylor Swift fans. So let's be frank here. So,
did you want to save this for later? But I was going to bring up the big news that I saw this week was about the new possible crypto exchange coming that's backed by Fidelity, Schwab, and Citadel.
It's strange. Why now? That's my question.
Yeah.
And what is this going to be? Is this going to be like, is this going to be how many projects are actually going to be offered on the exchange in terms of like it'll be interesting to see what the big banks deem as projects that they should have on an exchange. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, since they're calling everything securities now, I can't imagine them offering much except for Bitcoin.
Bitcoin and Litecoin.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I haven't actually looked to see, I don't even know if they've announced what they're gonna be carrying. But I mean, you do have to ask yourself. It looks like, all right, the SEC is going after Coinbase. They're going after Binance. They're going after all of the traditional crypto exchanges that we've become familiar with here in the industry. And now we have this brand new one that's coming out while the SEC is in a suit with Coinbase and Binance, backed by, the usual suspects. And you just have to wonder, like, what's really happening here? Like, who's pulling these strings, and, kind of what is the end game?
It's they're trying to be, Prometheum is not sticking well with the customer base. So they're trying something different.
I'm assuming that these banks know something is in the works. Otherwise, they wouldn't be pushing for this on their side.
Yeah. And I mean, I know we want to talk about the ETF later, but I mean, it's kind of the same thing with BlackRock. Like, there had to have been some sort of backdoor deals that have been some sort of discussions that have taken place. It's like, all right, you're going after, all the competition in the field. And this is our opportunity to enter. Like, you just wish you could be a fly on the wall in some of these discussions, because there's obviously things taking place.
Especially in those discussions between representatives from the respective banks and regulatory folks that that they're in communication constantly. Yeah, we might need to bring somebody on that knows more about the regulatory stuff and has a little closer ear to the ground. Yeah, that would be a good episode.
Did either of you watch, talking about other news, the James O'Keefe drop, undercover investigative journalist that I guess I don't know if you've seen any of these other similar to Project Veritas. James O'Keefe is kind of doing his own thing now.
O'Keefe Media.
O'Keefe Media, yeah. But so they send somebody out on a Tinder date, basically, with some of these big corporate people, and they always spill all this information. So the latest one was a BlackRock, some head guy there at BlackRock, and he was basically saying that, like, yeah, we buy out politicians and we call the shots and all that kind of stuff. So you see that video?
Yeah, I saw that. Yep. Now that you mention it, yep.
War is great for business, for the record. But anyway,
he said that too,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. But isn't it funny how those guys are so eager to share more information than what they probably should, because they're connecting with a live person that they met up with on a dating app. It's like, I'm just surprised how open they are with just like talking about this stuff.
Yeah.
It's just weird. It's weird to me. I don't think I would share a lot of that information to a random date. If from my
I feel like some of these people are just like social stubbed. Like they spend all their life in these kind of corporate gigs, and they don't really, I don't know, they don't talk to like normal people. It's kind of like that movie American Psycho, right? Where everybody's just kind of like playing this character.
It's Viktor Frankl. Man's search for meaning is in the relationships that he can build, and in the relationships that they try to build in today's world. Gosh, it's
also these guys are probably geeking out. They're probably like, "Whoa, there's a girl who's like actually interested in what I'm doing." You know? Yeah. Oh, you want to know?
Did you hear him too? I think he even said like, "Wow, you're really into this stuff." He's like, "You're like a undercover journalist or something." He said. But yeah, I mean, it just goes to say, like, and I don't know how high up this guy was. It seemed like he was in the corporate office, but I don't know.
He was HR. He was an HR guy. So
yeah,
he was bragging about how he controlled the fate of people working at BlackRock, and I'm just like, my gosh, power trip much? I don't know if you. So last week I had a lot of time to just kind of sit with my thoughts, because I was on dad duty while my wife was doing her job, and I was watching a movie called Keeping Up with the Joneses, and it's had like John Hamm and what's her name, Galdo or whatever, and Galifianakis was in it, and so Galifianakis' character was an HR guy, and John Hamm and Gal Gadot were the spies, and Galifianakis was the HR guy for the company that something was getting stolen. It was like a high-tech weapon or something like that, and they came in and like just became friends with him. It's a pretty funny movie. I don't know if it's the most appropriate movie, but trust me, in terms of what you're exposed to today, it was a pretty good, wholesome movie for the most part. So it was pretty funny, and that kind of reminded me of that HR dude who is just getting infiltrated by James O'Keefe's what I call them, his minions or his surrogates out in the field. By the way, James O'Keefe, if you ever want to come on the podcast, we'd be more than happy to talk to you about anything. So.
Hey, or if you work in HR at BlackRock, hey, we'd love to talk to you too.
Yeah, for the record, yeah, anybody who works at BlackRock, we feelers out there. We are interested in what you do and how you make the decisions that you make. So, yeah. Otherwise, that was fun.
This is kind of brings up a question, and I wonder if this will be good. Hopefully, we're getting a financial advisor on one of these episodes soon, and it'll be good to talk to him about these things. But it's interesting, right? Because it's like I think I mentioned it in the last episode that to me, I don't think it's too weird when you see that like Vanguard, owns the majority of some stock or has the highest share of ownership of a stock, because it actually means the everyday people own the stock in their retirement accounts. However, like then I I don't think that like it gives the power though to Vanguard, right? That like they have I wonder how they work. Does Vanguard vote at shareholder meetings, for all these companies, or
Yes.
so they have all the like governance power. You and I just have the price action.
Right.
That's the scary part about some
It's
of this stuff,
interesting.
Matt, is that these 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 big investment banks have a
Mhm.
lot of voting power, and if they don't like something with a particular company in terms of the direction or leadership that is in control of it, they have the ability to kind of pull levers together because they're all in the same 10-mile radius of each other in New York City or Delaware. So they can pick and choose who they want to be in charge of those top companies in the United States. And
Yeah.
yeah, if they don't like something, companies that allow themselves to have those type of votes with the shareholders, that they're exposed to it in a similar way. To
And
that,
sorry,
like,
maybe this
yeah,
maybe this is obvious. I don't know why it's just clicking in my head now. The like this issue of power over the company versus ownership of.
Yeah, I mean, it really is kind of just the bank problem. Like BlackRock is basically a big bank in a way. You have
Mhm.
all these people that are they're custodying other people's money so that they can invest in things, right? And with BlackRock, maybe you get a little more share of those profits than you would with a regular bank, right? But it
Right.
still is this. It's still same in the way, right? Because these corporate entities in a way are making the decisions, and you're just hoping to get a little bit of crumbs basically that support your retirement. You don't really have any other options, right?
Sure.
So I mean,
Well,
I was just
unless
thinking
you
actually. No, I was just thinking
go ahead.
the other day. I mean, like this really is kind of the problem with like this whole like system we've built with usury and whatnot. Like you can make it sound like, okay, we live in a capitalist society, and if I want to start a business and I need money, I'm going to go to somebody who has money and they're going to lend it to me. But you don't go to somebody who has, very rarely. I mean, yeah, there's venture capitalists out there and whatnot, but
Mhm, mhm.
most of the time you're going to one of these people who actually have other people's money, and they have other people's money because there's really no other options on the table. Like if you have money, you need to put it in these banks, you need to put it in these
yeah,
retirement accounts, and then they're going to be the
Mhm.
ones that are calling the shots. And then even coming out with what James O'Keefe was exposing, it's like, yeah, actually these entities do actually have interests that the day to day person that actually invests in these companies or puts money in these bank accounts, they're not the same interests. So it's really like they're basically gaining power just off of other people's money in a
Yeah.
way.
yeah. And that's like where people are limited because like your 401k is automatically going into these guys' hands. You kind of have no choice in the matter in certain instances.
Mhm.
A couple of companies have some cool options. It's everybody's different. Um, I can tell you a little bit about what I do off the record here, guys, because I found it really interesting for the first time ever working where I work now. But um, I've it's very much like everybody's kind of pigeonholed into a specific like Vanguard account where you're exposed to a higher aggressive investment style for until the year 2060 for us usually, and then it
Mhm.
then
Mhm.
then it gets in a more conservative money market based growth fund. So essentially, it's the magical, whimsical world of corporate finance that you never know how it works unless you're inside. And when you're inside, yeah, congratulations, you made it.
So it's interesting though to try to think through this, like what I, it's hard to think through like the options, right? I mean, I could go out and sell all my, Vanguard ETFs and, just buy buy one of every stock and then spend all day, every day rebalancing when something goes up and something goes down, right? Because that's what they do automatically, right? So like I couldn't do that, right? Because it would take way too much time. I would introduce myself to a lot of risk if I,
Yeah.
Didn't manage it very well.
And you're mathematically, Matt, it's impossible for you to do it successfully too, because
Sure.
you're
Exactly.
competing against computers. That's who
Yeah.
does it for these
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah.
It's all a computer equation for them. When to buy, when to sell. We don't have. I mean, unless you have that equation, you're
Well, it's not
not
even just the
doing that.
equation. It's the fact that they can take the loss because they have enough money to
Yeah,
kind of,
that too. Yep.
and they can just buy and
Yeah.
hold. Where it's much more difficult for the average investor to do that. In certain cases, you have to take profits and cut your losses.
Well, that's what
Sure.
Wealthfront advertises that they do for their clients is like a big, initiative that they push is that all the tax loss harvesting that they claim to do.
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody's doing tax loss harvesting. I don't think it's anything unique, unless I'm completely off base here. But
Sure.
that at least that's how I kind of see it. I don't know if Wealthfront is doing anything more unique than anybody
Yeah.
else.
But so then gosh, it's interesting, right? Because it's such a money game, right? You invest to make more money, and so I'm fine giving up my tiny amount of governance I would get by owning one share of every stock, to get the better profitability through Vanguard. And then I imagine some of these things exist out there, but I like if there was a Christian or a Catholic ETF,
Yeah.
and I would put my money into that company and they'd invest it. But I guess what I've been thinking about is it's almost like a whatever, the cart before the horse. I don't know, the chicken or the egg, right? They probably invest in certain companies that they feel are aligned with their values. But really what I want is I want someone to invest in all the things that Vanguard or BlackRock does, but with my values, so that when they get to those shareholder meetings, when they have to vote on something, they're voting for my values, not. I don't know.
But like,
I'd like to.
why isn't that on the market? It's like,
That's what I'm
why
saying. Yeah.
why isn't there a conservative bank, that gets approved or something? It's like, why is there no Bitcoin ETF except for when BlackRock's approving?
It's an
or
exclusive
submitting an
club.
application?
It's an exclusive club that only the invited get to participate in.
Yeah,
I
and
can
that's
tell
really
you
the problem, isn't it?
right
Like,
now the big push with all of them, they are really taking ESG seriously, but it's weird because Tesla, who is arguably one of the most ESG friendly companies, gets a terrible ESG score, even though they're actually producing something that isn't is eliminating carbon emissions at a high level. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I see more Teslas every day, every week when I'm
Yeah.
driving, and it's like
Yeah.
it's impressive to see how that's penetrated the market that effectively. They're doing something right, and
Yep.
yet they get dinged for for the values of the company. So
Yeah.
ESG is a weird thing. It's something that is being held in very high regard for whatever reason, and it impacts what gets invested in by some of these big banks too. So that's something I know that they look at, and you can look at that. Google Finance does a really good job of showing what a company's ESG score is. That's the best way to do that if you're into that sort of thing, I guess. I'm not saying I don't care for the environment, but I'd like to see results.
It's not that I don't care
Then
for the environment. I just don't trust the ESG score, and
I don't trust the ESG scores. Yeah, that's it. Yep.
I wonder if that, like, is that something where, like, do we have to, that is something that I've thought about, and I think I've talked to at least one of you about it. It'd be interesting to create like a Christian or a Catholic score.
Liberty score,
we
a Liberty score except Christian.
Liberty would be one, but to say like, hey, no, we value this, and so we want to invest in things that have high or low scores. I don't know. Here's another thought: the Bitcoin ETF is the opposite of something that's been talked about before, is tokenizing stocks, tokenizing shares of stocks, right? If they were to, tokenize all of these companies, right? And so they could be traded on like Ethereum, right? Then I could truly self-custody it. I could truly, I'm sure they'd have some way of, I could, in a smart contract or in some additional token, be able to like rebalance and manage things while also retaining voting power. Like there would be in a sense, we're doing the opposite, right? We're giving up our custody of Bitcoin. We're giving up our, governance. So Bitcoin governance is weird, right? But BlackRock would have something to say if they held a large portion of Bitcoin, right? And there was a, fork coming up and they supported one or the other side. It would have a lot of authority to them supporting that.
Kind of an interesting side point, but Terra Luna was basically trying to do that in a way.
Mirror protocol.
Well, so Luna was
about Luna.
I don't know about
Mirror
them either.
protocol. But
That was
Luna,
that was Luna's. That was Mirror protocol.
Oh, okay. It was built on Luna.
It was on Luna. Yeah.
Interesting.
What did they do?
They mirrored stocks, and they mirrored stocks, project, and it was TUSD on Luna.
Well, because what Luna Terra was doing was anybody could create a stablecoin, basically.
Yeah.
So UST was the US dollar stablecoin, but you can make a stablecoin for anything. You could have a stablecoin that basically tracked a stock price. Or in most cases, it was tracking other currencies, and maybe there was some like legal liability there, but that was the idea behind their technology. But
still slightly different though, right? Because then you're introducing the risk.
You're not actually holding that. You just
Luna collapse, and then you're not holding it either, right? But if we can support, and so really, and I know we were going to talk about Bitcoin maximalists at some point anyway, right? But like this is. Like Ethereum is good because it would allow for, all these tokens that are out there are more or less worthless, right? However, if you were able to get legal recognition and like, GameStop, launched a token instead of shares of stock, and it held, company governance and things like that, then it would like that would be a better, more decentralized.
Yeah. And I mean, that's kind of what I was just bringing up just before we started recording. But like, that you kind of wonder like, okay, and all these, maybe we're moving this to the conversation now, but
sure. And sorry, I kind of derailed.
No, it's probably the right time to do that. But like, okay, so the SEC is suing Coinbase, is suing Binance. It looks like they're going after crypto, but not Bitcoin. So Bitcoin's getting the pass. Bitcoin's okay. BlackRock's going to come out with a Bitcoin ETF in all likelihood, right? So Bitcoin gets a pass, but they don't like crypto. And it's like, okay, why does the SEC, why do all these interests that in general we think are making shady deals, why are they okay with Bitcoin but not crypto? And to me, I think that has a part to do with it. And you have to look back to the history, like what's happened. Like, well, they started going after these mixes. They went after a centralized standard crypto mixer. Well, I think it was actually Bitcoin mixer. I think it was Bitcoin IO or something. I forget the name of it now. And then the very next thing they went after was Tornado Cash. Why did they go after Tornado Cash? Because they don't like that there's this crypto technology that they can't track. So with blockchain, you can track everything. They could track, funds that North Korea was moving around and whatnot and hacking funds. But if it got pushed through Tornado Cash, then all of a sudden they lost the ability to track it. So they didn't like that. So they went after Tornado Cash. And so now they're going after crypto. Well, why? Well, because with Ethereum and with these Turing complete blockchains, you can create all of these mechanisms and all of this confusion that basically obfuscates transactions and things that happen on chain. And so that technology is so much more unwieldy than, as much as I like Bitcoin, something simple like Bitcoin, which is just transactions. As long if you have a wallet address, you can track where the money moves, all the hands that exchanges and everything, unless it moves off to a centralized exchange like Binance. Let's also go after Binance, right?
Right.
But yeah, so that's why like Bitcoin's less dangerous in a way than these other chains like Ethereum.
I'm going to share. So what you were talking about here, that this was that mirror protocol that was on Terra Luna. It was essentially pegged to some stocks here. So as you can see, we had like you can see Robinhood, Nike, Microsoft. I know Tesla had one, and these were all tracked as kind of like L2s, L3s on CoinGecko or CoinMarketCap for a while, and now they're completely depegged essentially. This is exactly what they did not want to happen, and Luna was just doing it, and for Mirror Protocol at least. So that was the first like tokenized pegging that was going on from that standpoint for a while until the whole Terra Luna fiasco occurred. So yeah,
To get back to that point.
Sorry, just one more thing there, but we still don't know like who sunk Luna. Like
BlackRock
who was
did. Sorry,
was it BlackRock? Like they fully denied it, but like there was some big buyer who obviously intentionally sunk Luna. And I don't know. I mean, you can just kind of like start to draw
Anonymous.
some of these conspiracy lines. Like, what's going on here?
It was anonymous.
I wonder. I don't know. I mean, this is I baseless completely, but just they shorted. I think they shorted UST, right? And then and so I wonder. It's completely baseless again. So I'm starting a rumor here, but what if it was another stable coin, right? What if it was Circle or Tether? Saw the competition and they said, oh, I'm just gonna, from my stable coin short your stable coin, and then it paid off. Whoever did it paid off. But yeah, the gosh, what was I gonna say? Oh, so it gets back to my point though. By mirroring the price, you still are like you lose out on governance, and then you lose out on dividends, right? These are so like some of these stocks, like I think I saw that they had, I think KO is Coca-Cola, and that's one that pays out decent dividends, and so it's like, oh well, I'm buying it to track the price, but I'm not, and so but really, like I was saying earlier, you could build these protocols, like people have kind of proof of concept with all of these millions of tokens out there, all the things you can do. You can set up dividends to be automatic, or a way to claim it, or a way to there's just so many things you could do within governance as well. People have voting power. There are a lot of governance tokens out there, and so it really I don't know, it's funny. It's hitting me in a certain way. I've thought about it before with Bitcoin maxis, that like if if Bitcoin is just a store of value, or even a medium of exchange, but it doesn't have the ability to build any of these other things that are decentralized, then you're saying like, hey, well, any of these other things I want to invest in are going to be through centralized means. If Bitcoin replaced the US dollar, I would still have to rely on Robinhood to buy and sell stocks, right? Like there's no Uniswap on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's not, because it's just decentralized money. It's not, it's not decentralized exchange or decentralized anything else.
Yeah.
So, no, I mean, so let's talk about Bitcoin maximalism then. What do you think, Brandon? Anything else on the ETF? I know you have some stuff.
Well, I think we should continue that conversation that we were having prior to recording, where we have gotten so pigeonholed with Bitcoin being a store of value versus a medium of exchange, and where we might be missing the mark there. And because to be frank, I treat it like everybody treats it today. In terms of it being a store of value, I'm not really spending it. So
Yeah.
I guess I'm just I don't know, right, wrong, or indifferent. It just seems like that's the best way to do it. However, I will admit it is a efficient way to move money multinationally, more efficiently than any other means that I know of today. From that respect, if somebody has a Coinbase wallet, I have a Coinbase wallet, and they're in Africa and I'm here in the U.S., this is probably the fastest way. But I don't know. I don't know why we're so afraid. Like I'm afraid, to be frank, but I don't know why. I guess so.
What,
Yeah,
afraid to sell?
yeah. I don't want to sell it.
Not just internationally, but I had something where I was trying to transfer money from one of my bank accounts to another bank account, and it took so long. Like I was expecting it to show up the next day or the day after, and it took like 5 days before it finally
With Bitcoin or the money?
Money with US dollars. So sorry, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that Bitcoin is good for any of these things, not just international things, but settling.
I'll just wait for Fed now to get implemented, and it'll be
exactly. Yeah,
solve all your problems
next month. Can't wait to have that episode in July.
Yeah, but no, I mean, this is kind of interesting. So this is kind of the problem with narratives in a way. It's like, so a narrative it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. So like the stock to flow model, they say like Bitcoin's going to 100K because of all these numbers, and everybody starts buying in because they believe that, and then that just becomes like the reality, even if it was totally made up. And Bitcoin didn't go to 100K, but if it did, I mean, it would have just been a self-fulfilling prophecy because there was no actual reality kind of backing that whole theory up. And so this is kind of the same thing. They say, okay, Bitcoin is digital gold, meaning that, what do you do with gold? It's a store of value. You hold it. You don't spend it, but it does hold value. So Bitcoin becomes digital gold. Bitcoin becomes a store of value. And then that's the way everybody thinks. And then it just becomes HODL. All the memes are telling you to hold and not to sell. And then before you know it, like, that just becomes the reality. Now, nobody wants to actually use Bitcoin as currency, which is a problem if you want it to be a medium of exchange. So now Bitcoin has basically, like you said, Matt, before the podcast, it's like they don't want Bitcoin to be spent on anything anymore. It used to be Bitcoin was basically the money that all the criminals used to buy and sell stuff on the black market because it had so many advantages over using digital dollars, right? And now they don't like any sort of what you might call scams, like the NFTs and stuff. They don't want this was what I guess Udi was explaining in that video. Maybe we can link that in the description. But he was basically saying, like, why don't we use Bitcoin? Why can't we get OpenSea to allow people to buy NFTs with Bitcoin? Well, Bitcoiners don't like NFTs, so they wouldn't want you spending money in Bitcoin. But it's like, okay, let's say NFTs are a scam. And in many cases, a lot of them are scams, right? Or all these other cryptocurrencies are scams. People should be allowed to buy scams with their money. Like, why can't we implement so we can actually use Bitcoin in all these cases? But they don't like NFTs. They don't like, the digital economy, all the people who would know how to use Bitcoin. They don't want them using Bitcoin to participate in the economies that they want to participate in. And it's like, okay, what are we going to buy Bitcoin? What are we going to buy with Bitcoin? Basically nothing, because you just hold Bitcoin. It's a store of value, right? So that's really is the problem. It's like Bitcoin maximalism is like a Bitcoin death cult in a way. Like, you just buy Bitcoin, you don't sell it, and then even like Michael Saylor comes out, like, then you die with your keys. So you never use it at all through the whole life stage.
And the ETFs are going to jam that up even more, because it's going to be like, well, why would I sell this? Because basically it's the gold complex,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that like Bitcoin is a death cult. I mean that it's like Bitcoin is killing itself in a way, because the end of Bitcoin is basically to not use it.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Yeah. I think, so gosh, I had a couple of thoughts there. So that was Udi's point. This was a, Udi, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but he's one of the Taproot Wizard guys, right? You all know him. Him and Eric were dressed as wizards at the Bitcoin Miami conference, right, during that ordinals debate. Anyway, it was like an interview from like a year ago, and he was saying Bitcoin is a digital currency, right? It's natively digital, right? It's not this is the way it works, right? And we can't even, like, it used to be back in, the 2018 bull run, everything was denominated in Bitcoin. Any trading pairs were something versus Bitcoin on exchanges, and he's like, yeah, but now, like you're saying, NFTs are bought and priced in Ethereum or Solana, and so yeah, his point was it was meant to be a digital currency, and it can't, like, there's no digital there is a digital economy now, but it's not built around Bitcoin. It's the dumbest thing. There's no digital economy, right? And NFTs are really, I mean, a kind of a circular economy, right? There's no like pulling, there's no real goods being transferred. Everything's digital. And it's a mess. And so it's cool that I'm with him. And I think ordinals are really cool in this way, because now you are seeing ordinals that are, they're priced in Satoshis, and they're, being exchanged via Bitcoin. But it's just a great point, right? Bitcoin, he said Bitcoin can't even support a digital economy, the digital economy. Like, how's it going to become the world currency, or the world store of value, or anything else? So and it is interesting on this point. I have seen a good number of tweets where people are like, AI is going to be great for Bitcoin because AI is going to recognize computer money, which is Bitcoin. And it's like, no, but you guys don't even recognize Bitcoin as computer money. Like, you guys you guys see it as digital gold, or as, whatever, another store of value. And so, yeah, it's kind of funny. And now I'm going to go and reply to all those tweets and say, you don't even see, Yeah.
I was trying to find what, cause I think I saw that you had responded to this person. And so then I was responding to them, but it was basically about the real estate, guy who was basically, what was he saying? Like, don't buy real estate, because he was saying that all the people who had invested in real estate were going to lose all their bags because they should have invested in Bitcoin. Right?
Yeah. So this Bitcoin Maxi was saying that, if you're invested in anything besides Bitcoin, everything's going to be inflated away, which, and he named a few things. I think he named stocks, and then he named real estate. And, so I sarcastically replied saying, oh yeah, they just printed, a few more square miles near me, and now it takes me 10 minutes longer to get to the grocery store. Real estate is also a scarce asset. Like, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the government tried to, through some other means, like, take everyone's real estate, jack up taxes, or do things like that, so that I actually lose my real estate. But, like, if I own my house, like, I still have a house. I still have a place to live, right? And really stocks as well. Like, I think, like it's weird to say, right? But if we went through hyperinflation tomorrow, like, or whatever, in the next month, like, I bet, and don't quote me on this, I'm not going to have $1 million biology bet, but I bet that if you held, like, McDonald's stock, like, they would be able to, like, McDonald's will still sell hamburgers just for $1 million a burger, and then their stock's going to be worth, like I bet that would be a decent hedge for hyperinflation too, right? Like why would
I don't think the stock market. I think I mean, historically, just looking at every time we've had like this kind of economic inflations, the stock market always crashes. So, and I don't have like the economic theory behind it, but it seems like that's always been the case, that the stock market just totally
Does
kills everything.
Okay, I could be wrong. I mean, so like I know the whatever 1929 or whatever.
Well, actually, that is what
was
it is.
bank
No,
runs, which was different, right? That wasn't hyperinflation. So
yeah, but if it's hyperinflation, the problem is people need cash. The cash becomes worthless, but they pull out of the banks because they need the cash. It's kind of the same thing for the stocks. You can't sell the stock, so they're getting out of the stocks because they need. It's the same. So when COVID hit, right, everybody needed cash. They lost their jobs. They pull their money out of Bitcoin. They pull their money out of the stock market, then everything. So that might be the theory.
It's fair, but then I mean,
but you
Bitcoin
don't
went
your money out of
down.
real estate. Because,
Bitcoin, all the stocks in Bitcoin went down right at the beginning because people needed money. But then, as soon as there was that injection of cash, that everyone got their $1,000, everything went up really high, right? I mean, 2021 was a huge bull run. I don't know, and maybe I'm thinking about it wrong, but I don't know. I mean, I think
no, that
will
makes
still
sense.
be,
I see what you're saying.
I don't think maybe they won't be able to pace with hyperinflation, but I guess I have a hard time seeing, how a company that has good like rate of cash flow would like, I don't know, somehow go under with hyperinflation.
It's hard to say, but I mean, even just like looking at face value, the guy's claim about people investing in real estate. Like what are we saying? Like, don't spend your Bitcoin or don't spend your money on real world assets, just buy Bitcoin. Like, what are we buying Bitcoin for? So that we can use it as money to actually buy things that we need in the real world, like land and like, I mean, that kind of just highlights basically the issue with kind of this hyper Bitcoin maximalism kind of argument in a way. And I actually related it back to, Thomas Aquinas and his definition of like what usury is basically is like money should not be a commodity. It should be a unit of exchange. When you start treating money itself as like something to be, gained and held and traded as if it was something to in and of itself, like that's when you start running into all these issues with usury and with other immoralities relating to money. I mean, that was his definition. I'm not saying that he had it 100% right, but he made a logical argument, and that is kind of the problem I have with this hyper Bitcoin maximalism, where Bitcoin itself becomes a commodity and it's like an end to itself. Well, no, it should be a unit of exchange. People should be buying and selling things with Bitcoin, and you do need land. You do need real world assets that are not Bitcoin.
Yeah, so. It's not. I mean, there's Bitcoin maximalism on Twitter, but also I'm in a local Bitcoin chat group. People who are near me regionally, and someone was chatting. A few people were chatting earlier today, and one guy was like, "Oh, I wonder how many people are in." What's the percentage of people who are in Bitcoin to like get more fiat versus the people who are in Bitcoin because they like believe ideologically in Bitcoin, and it's like, I think everybody who is investing or who is buying Bitcoin is looking to either gain or retain their wealth. And so like in 20 years, like if the dollar disappears and we're using Bitcoin, then they're going to use Bitcoin to buy a house. If the dollar is still sticking around, they're going to exchange their Bitcoin for dollars and then, buy a house. It was kind of a weird statement. The more I've thought about it, it just seems like a weird statement, because it's like everybody, you either think the dollar's going to collapse or you think the dollar's going to stick around but inflate at a super high rate, so that you're when you want to use it, you're going to either use it or exchange it for something that you do use. The other Bitcoin maximalist take, which is funny, I know I mentioned it before, is just like there's this idea that if the dollar collapsed, all of a sudden, if the whole fiat system collapsed, all of a sudden everybody would start accepting Bitcoin. And it's like, they might not, like why would they? If 5% of people own this thing, like, the entire global population is not going to all of a sudden say like, okay, now I'm denominating these things in Bitcoin, and I have none of this, and so I'm looking to get any of this. Like I don't know. I mean, they're gonna, we're gonna go into a barter system with food or gold or something else that people recognize has value, right? My point in this is that they're like, you have to be, if you want Bitcoin to become the future, like you have to be pro adoption. You can't like be in the have fun stay poor camp, or the what's the other, good for you, GFY, right? They say that all the time. They like you can't be in that camp, because then it's like, okay, like you can't restrict yourself. Like if the dollar collapsed tomorrow, Bitcoin would not replace it, because, well, one, there's not enough infrastructure for people to like use it as a currency, and then two, there is not enough adoption, and people don't recognize the value of Bitcoin just on its own, that like it would not replace it automatically. Maybe it would eventually, but it would have to. It would only be able to replace it like through further adoption. I don't know if I'm rambling here.
What do we need then?
Sense.
Do we need businesses to just all start creating, like, we've talked about the Bitmart thing, like if we were we in our business episode, and honestly, it's like you have to create a means through which you will accept Bitcoin as a payment. Ultimately, like it'd have to start at a small business level. Ultimately,
sure,
Yeah,
right?
Gets back to this question though, right? It's a chicken and egg thing, right? It is like, why would a company accept Bitcoin if the people who hold Bitcoin don't want to spend it? Like they're not going to open access to a lot more, customers.
And it's just such a small subset of the global population that would be sitting on enough Bitcoin that they wouldn't mind spending it. That's another factor too.
I don't think that's really a factor, because
But who are those individuals, Connor? I've only met one of them ever.
One of
sitting on enough Bitcoin that they would be willing to spend it. That's what I'm saying, though. Is I
Yeah.
don't think.
I spent Bitcoin. You met me. Connor can vouch for me. When we were in Miami, I spent Bitcoin.
But I'm saying you don't actually need to be sitting on any Bitcoin to spend it. Like,
no, but
I make the case,
to
like,
a certain point where you feel comfortable that, like, oh yeah, if I spend a little bit of Bitcoin, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. See, I think that's what people.
I'm saying that's part of the problem. Though,
yeah, that is the problem.
It
is people look at
needs to be to the point where it's like, I have no Bitcoin. Oh, I need to buy something with Bitcoin and just buy it and like, exchange it. It needs to be like that. That's why I always tell people, like, don't invest in Bitcoin. Just if you find an opportunity where you can actually use Bitcoin, then just buy the Bitcoin you need to make the transaction happen, so you can actually start using the system, and then you actually have a head on your shoulders to understand what Bitcoin is, as opposed to just like buy and number go up, which is nonsense.
So we just have to decouple ourselves from government currencies.
Well, you just have to. But also no. Like, you just have to. You have to decouple yourself from Bitcoin as a store of value. It needs to be a medium of exchange.
You need to create, and this is Udi's point. You need to create like economies, circular economies that rely on, like, where Bitcoin is the exchange.
This is what needs to happen. Okay, everybody brings up the pizza problem. Like, okay, the guy spent like what? How many Bitcoin was
10,000
on the pizza?
10,000
Bitcoin. He lost out on what? 10,000 Bitcoin now would be like millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah.
How did he lose that? He could have easily just spent 10,000 Bitcoin to buy the pizza, and then spend $20 to buy all of that Bitcoin back in like 2 seconds. So he didn't lose any money by buying that pizza. So we need to think the same way. Like, if I'm going to buy something with Bitcoin, I'm going to use my Bitcoin and I'm going to spend it. I have no problem spending my Bitcoin. I can just buy it back with US dollar like 10 seconds later. It's not a problem. So we need to stop hodling and start using Bitcoin.
Yep. And then really random, kind of off topic, but the pizza guy, there was, I was reading, I forget where it was, if it was a tweet or it was on Reddit or something, but there was this theory that the guy, he spent 10,000 Bitcoin for the good of Bitcoin and for decentralization, because apparently he had posts on, these Bitcoin forums where he was like, trying out like mining with a GPU and ended up like mining a ton, before they made
Yeah.
changes where you couldn't, and doing things like that. And then so it was kind of like, hey, like you shouldn't hold that much. We're trying to distribute this. And so that was his way of distributing, was the, he gave up 10,000 Bitcoin so that we could be where we are today. But
I wouldn't mind having a conversation about this with somebody like Breedlove, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
I'd be interested to
Yeah,
hear his
that'd be
thoughts
interesting.
on this stuff a little bit, because he talks about the economy components of Bitcoin and how it should be used and stuff, and not just as like being a store of value. That's kind of where I've, at least, for the things that I don't like about his theology, some of his stuff where he talks about how Bitcoin could be used someday, but his is still kind of a doomsday ish, like, because it's like, yeah, we get all our Bitcoin, and then when everything else goes to the woodshed, I have Bitcoin, so that's what I'll use as my medium of exchange. And it's just like, but shouldn't we expedite that to just be using as a medium of exchange all along? So
you need to start doing it, right? If you
Yeah.
don't know people who will accept Bitcoin in exchange for goods and services, then your Bitcoin is worthless, right? When everything collapses, you need to have, a
network state.
you have a network state. You have to have a network. If you don't have a network, there is a, I don't know, there's a guy who like sells meat, cuts of beef for
Butcher.
Bitcoin, some butcher, and he accepts Bitcoin, and it's just, he's got this kind of national brand. A lot of, Bitcoin maximalists like him.
The Bitcoin butcher.
But I don't know what his name is, but he accepts Bitcoin, and it's like, okay, great. So like, if everything collapses, you can use your Bitcoin to buy meat. Like, that's it. No, you need to have an economy for when, you need to have and this, maybe it gets to the parallel polis thing a bit, you need to have, if, not just if, my fiat account is shut down, I need to have other ways of exchanging value. But if the whole system collapses, and I don't have some network of exchanging value, then, what I have is worthless.
Yeah, I'm just realizing this, but there really is no difference between like a lot of these Bitcoin communities and like Wall Street bets. You go on Wall Street bets and it's like, we're holding GameStop, and they even use the same memes. We're hodling, like we're gonna hold it. Oh, it's crashing. Hold it, hold it. We're going to the moon. And it's the same thing with Bitcoin, right? It's like, so we're really gonna say like this technology is like gonna change the world, and like we're treating it like a a meme stock gamble in a way. The Bitcoin is something different. It's not a stock. It's not a hold it and the number goes up. Bitcoin is sovereign money. It needs to be that, right? You need to use it, and we need to encourage more people to actually use it, businesses to accept it, and people to spend it. So that's what really needs to change with the whole Bitcoin maximalism argument. Like when I look at what, I don't know, have you guys ever used your Bitcoin to spend, to buy something in the real world? I bought an SSD with Bitcoin because Newegg was allowing people to transact with Bitcoin at the time. I assume they still are. And when I saw that they had it, I said, yeah, why not? I'm going to try it. I bought, initially I got into Bitcoin because I was trying to buy like these throwaway phone numbers, on the internet without like having it connected to my personal identity, just as a fun project. I wasn't doing anything. And it's like, well, how can I do this? Oh, I can use Bitcoin. So I use Bitcoin to buy that. I use Bitcoin to buy a VPN. And I've used Bitcoin a lot of times to buy other coins, right, on exchanges. So all of those use cases for Bitcoin are legitimate, including buying other things in the digital economy. Like I should be able to buy NFTs and shit coins basically with my Bitcoin. This doesn't need to be protected. Like Bitcoin doesn't need to be protected from these things. So
No, I bought the when we were in Miami, I bought Scott's board game with Bitcoin.
right.
Nice.
And then I paid someone back for lunch with Bitcoin, so it's not like it went to
Yeah.
you know.
Well, and I paid you back for the hotel. with
Exactly.
Bitcoin. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been paid in Bitcoin. I've used Bitcoin to pay. We've got a circular economy going here.
Yeah, I've used Bitcoin for some payments for people too, for services and stuff. So, yep, I've
Yeah.
used it.
So I mean, and that's what needs to change, I think, with the Bitcoin discussion. It needs to be more oriented towards being an exchange of value. I mean, medium of exchange. Yeah, an exchange of value. I said that right. Not a store of value, an exchange of value.
Yeah. I think we're all on the same page here, and then I think it does. It can't grow any further. Otherwise, like the BlackRock ETF is the next natural course of progression. If it's gold, then we're going to see paper gold, right?
Yeah.
If we treat it like gold, we're going to see paper Bitcoin. And so if we treat it as a medium of exchange, I don't use my ETFs to buy anything. I don't use my ETF to whatever, do anything else with it. Right. I only, I buy and sell it. Right. But yeah.
I would really like to talk to somebody from BlackRock or Vanguard or somebody who at least like moves in those circles just to understand how they view Bitcoin. You know what I mean? Like just somebody who's in that world from a networking standpoint. Because obviously, if you work for BlackRock or Vanguard, you're not gonna come on a podcast to talk about crypto. It's more or less what is crypto and the parallels with the church, like our podcast. But it'd be interesting to have somebody on the podcast that at least moves in those circles and knows just the disposition of the way those people think. If I'm thinking the way they think, they see an opportunity to make money and they don't care. That's honestly what I think it is. But I want that confirmed in some capacity.
Well, that's what I was going to say. They see it as hey, look, people are willing to give us money for this thing. Like, okay, let's offer a Bitcoin ETF.
100%. Yeah.
They're going to send us cash and we just, out of nowhere, they're just going to send us cash.
Yeah.
So that's probably
precisely.
But yeah, I was going to say, I'm looking to invest in some US dollar ETFs here pretty soon.
Is that a joke?
I don't get it. Sorry.
No, there's not going to be a US dollar ETF. There's right.
Treasury.
An ETF
that's what I figured. I was like, Matt and I were like crickets. Like, wait, that's a really bad joke.
It's like he's phrased that the wrong way. Yeah,
I will say, I bonds have made a big comeback recently. You can only invest $10,000 annually into them, but they're at least a guaranteed return annually of I don't know if it's what is it like 3 to 5%, right? Or what?
It's inflation. It tracks with it. And
sure. So I mean, so a lot of people have been getting back into those. I was talking with my bankers about that a couple of weeks ago. I was just like, yikes. So it's kind of funny, but yeah,
it's good. Just on the whatever crypto medium of exchange. This was the whole point of the Bitcoin Cash hard fork, but I don't think Bitcoin Cash has been successful at doing this, right? When we talked about the hard forks, I looked it up and Bitcoin Cash is like the size of the blockchain is like about half of the size of Bitcoin's blockchain. And then Bitcoin SV, has really done a lot with things you could do on the blockchain itself to be more like Ethereum. Like they have maybe a Turing complete smart contract language. There's a lot more stuff you could do on BSV, but like, again, that has not been successful, right? I think in terms of medium of exchange, I think Monero is actually a pretty good community of
Yes.
it seems like people in Monero are in it to use it, and again, I don't know what they're using it on because it's a privacy coin.
Not necessarily
It
the best
might
things.
be black market type shady type of things, but they do seem to have an economy built around it. Which is interesting. Obviously, like we were saying, Ethereum has an economy built around it, but again, purely digital. The way that you can buy and sell stuff with Ethereum, everything's priced in Ethereum, everything's traded against Ethereum on Uniswap. I don't know. Any other cryptos come to mind, to
Monero's the only one, mostly because they use it. So like Silk Road was with Bitcoin. Essentially, it's like Silk Road 2.0 with Monero. So that's what it's used for, from what I've seen, at least. And honestly, I don't hate it because there's actually there's utility, and that's why I it's funny because I feel like we've been recapping a couple of shows in this episode, but that's why I shouted out Monero, because I'm like, at least there's an economy there. Like,
Yeah.
you can't really say that about a lot of the other ones. So
Yeah, it's true. Monero really is a medium of exchange, and that's all it is. So, Bitcoin should take something from that and learn something from it, I think.
yeah, Bitcoin, learn from Monero. Bitcoin's gonna hate hearing that, but especially the maxis, but it's not
Hey,
wrong.
this is maybe a good closing thought. I know we're really crapping on Bitcoin maximalists. If you are a Bitcoin maximalist and you're listening to this, we would love to chat with you. If you want, are we misrepresenting your case? Let us know. We want this to be a conversation, obviously, but yeah, this is just kind of what we've been seeing out there. And
Robert
thoughts on
Breedlove,
that.
come on the podcast. Connor's face. Well, otherwise, here's where we sit. Decent episode, regardless of that. We'll be looking to get some guests on. We have some feelers out there with some people. It's difficult because it's summer right now, I think, and just pinning people down. But we should have a guest next week talking about some interesting topics surrounding AI. So look forward to that. And yeah, we'll definitely get back into the church lane. We have a lot of contacts that we can tap into regarding those things, and yeah, just appreciate everybody listening to us talk about these things that are going on in crypto right now the past couple of weeks. So just appreciate anybody who's been listening. Please like, comment, review, subscribe. Unsubscribe, resubscribe, wherever podcasts are found. And as always, we appreciate it. And everybody have a great rest of your week, and God bless.